Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Bava Metzia, daf Kuv Zayin. We're going to begin the fourth wide line with the first of the two Mishnayos on this daf. Says the Mastis, Basar Korchitim Lashana. So, as Rashi tells us, what happened in this situation is you have a person who is engaged in chirus, namely that you designate a specific amount of money that you're going to provide for the use of this field as a sharecropper, and it's specifically 10 core of wheat for the year. However, veloksa, it turned out to be poor quality wheat. So noislin lo metocha. So the renter, or the one that uses this field, will pay from the field itself. In other words, he would give him bad wheat. Now, Rashi points out that even though we're dealing with poor quality, this whole chiddush is only by charichus. Because if we were talking about kablonos, says Rashi, pshita the whole echad zeich mischai bechelko, because kablonos is you see how everything is, and then you divide it a third or a half, a fourth, however you were deciding, but you divide the crops itself. When it comes, so therefore obviously you would be able to give from that field. But the chiddush is, even by chachirus, the din is the same. Hayuchiteha yavois. Let's say in the opposite situation, the wheat is actually pretty good. So lo yarmelo harinu lekech min ashuk. I'm gonna give you wheat from the marketplace. El noisin lo mitocha. So therefore, it's not just when things are not going well, also when things are going well. Says the Gemara. Who got rid of kabel ar las pasta? You have a person that made an arrangement that he was going to use the field and end up giving him based on what grows in the field, which would be a spasta. However, bekure desari, but he would end up paying with barley. So even though he's going to be using the field by producing a spasta, the agreement is that he would end up paying with barley. So of the aspasta, he worked with aspasta, v'charsha, he plowed the field, v'zara, sa'ari, and he ended up afterwards putting seed of barley, v'loku hani sa'ari, and all of a sudden the barley got ruined. So the truth is, he said that he was going to pay him back with barley, so maybe he can give him back this inferior quality of barley. So Shalcha Rav Chaviv Mesura the Pras, he sent the message of Committee Ravina, Ki Hagav Damai. What's it din? Ki Ulaksa Naisin Lo Mataycha Dami. Do we say that when there's poor quality crop that you should be still able to pay back the arrangement with that poor quality? So therefore, since he did seed with barley eventually, so therefore you can give him that poor quality barley. Or maybe that's not the case, because again, what ended up happening was originally he was planting for aspasta. So Amalei midami hasamu avda ara shlichusa damara hacha avda ara shlichusa damara. So one case it did that which it was supposed to do. Baleha l'chachara alaspasta, that the guy was supposed to work and pay with aspasta. If it grew properly, and he arranged that he was going to end up paying him barley from the marketplace. In other words, this was one case was part of a stipulation, one was not. Hahu gavra de kibil pardes mechavre. So you have a person who accepted a pardes, Rashi says, a kerem, a vineyard from his friend, and it was be'eser dani chamra for 10 barrels of wine, and obviously you want the wine to be of high quality. Unfortunately, takiv hahu chamra, this wine, takiv, Rashi says, hichmetz, became vinegary. So Savarav kahanel meimer hanamas nisan, that loksa noisel mitocha, that since it's spoiled, just like if, let's say, you end up having low quality grain in your field, so you can give him that, so you can also give him the vinegar. So Amalei Ravashi mi dami hasamu av da'ar shlichusa hakada av da'ar shlichusa. So it's the same thing. Says Rashi, of the Arash Lichusa, Ha'avanim lo laku, Ela Mishinase Yayin B'Chaviyose Bebeso. The grapes did not get ruined until it was made into wine in barrels in his house. That's how it ended up happening. Okay. Umayda Ravashi, however, concludes this piece that Ravashi agrees B'inve de Kadum Uvasada Shiloksa Ba'imareha. Says Rashi, if we're dealing with Inve Kardum, which Rashi says are Anavim Shehisliyoi, grapes that became wormy, Ba'imareha Ba'idem Shatuchais Liavish, where they're still drying up, Yamotzakais in the summer, then he would agree in that situation. Okay. Let's look at question 6. Hamakabel sada mechavero becharichus o bekablonas lazar sarim to plant barley. Ha'im yochel lazarim chitum madua. So that is already going to be the next question. So let's keep going. Next Mishnah. Hamakabel sada mechavero lazar sarim. So you have, actually, let's look at question 2, TA2 first. So, Hamakabel Pardes Mechavero, this was actually the case we just saw, so let's take a look at it. This is question 2A, TA2. So you have a vineyard, and you say the arrangement is you're going to end up giving 10 barrels of wine. The wine became vinegary. Fardes, that this wine is for the vineyard. And it got ruined by you. So what's the din? Can you say that it became ruined by you? So this is how he says. Actually, the land did what it was supposed to do. It was the mazel of the makabel that caused it. In other words, you can't end up saying that the field didn't do what it was supposed to do, because as Rashi said, that the grapes were fine. It was only once it actually went into this other guy's house that it got ruined. And therefore, you cannot apply this din of loksil mataycha. Okay. Weiter. Now let's see the next Mishnah. If your job was to plant barley, you're not allowed to plant wheat. However, how about the other way around? Chitim, if the arrangement was for you to plant wheat, then you can plant barley. He says, no, you can't do that either. So why would there be a difference? So Rashi says, first of all, this is a set amount. So if you arranged that you're going to be planting barley, you can't plant wheat. As we saw before, wheat ends up depleting the ground more than barley does. And therefore, if you said barley, which doesn't ruin the ground as much, we don't want you to use wheat. Here, we again are only talking about one of the two situations, as we saw a couple of blot ago. That's one or the other. That you already paid a certain amount. When it comes to kablonos, where you get a certain percentage, so there's this concept of tichash ara v'lo tichash mara, that let the ground become weakened, but not the person. Because wheat is more expensive than barley. So even though it's true, you can maybe say, well, the quality of my field is not as good because the wheat depleted the nutrients from the ground, but an owner would rather have the money than have a field that's a little bit depleted. So therefore, the case cannot be talking about kablonos. It has to be talking about a case of charichus. And that is what question 6 is. Mekabel son mechavero b'charichus or b'kablonos was zar se'oyirim, to plant barley. Ha'im yochel zarim chitim, are allowed to plant wheat. So in that case, the Mishnah explicitly says that if we're dealing with chirus, so it says you should not plant wheat. As it says, it gets weakened, etc. So, and of course, our Shmuel agrees with that. So everyone holds you should not plant it because the land gets worse. However, when it comes to kablonos, you could. The adif karka, even though the ground gets weakened, he would rather have more money because wheat is more expensive than barley. Okay. Fine. So that's that question 6, and we saw that Rashi. So let's continue the Mishnah. Chitim yizrena zorim v'shem gimel oiser. Tevuah yizrena kitnius. Kitnius yizrena tevuah v'shem gimel oiser. So it's the same thing. Here we're dealing with grains versus legumes. As Rashi says, shekitnius macheches hakar yizrena tevuah. Beans, also like wheat compared to barley, so too beans will also take away from the ground, and therefore you're not to make this switch was going to end up ruining the ground. So says the Gemara, why does he say that even though we're dealing with a situation, let's say let's go back to wheat and barley, that if you agreed with wheat and instead you switch it to barley, what's the problem? Why would he not say it's not allowed? Because after all, the ground is not going to end up being ruined as much. That a person shouldn't speak lies or do against what was stipulated. It shouldn't be found in their mouth trickery. So that's the idea. So Migbas Purim Lepurim. This we tried to bring previously as a raya to Rabbi Meir, that if your person's Bashana, he's Nikr Gazlan. We ended up not using this as a raya. Migbas Purim Lepurim, that the money collected for Purim must be specifically allocated for the purposes of Purim. Vein Medaktik and Badavar, we're not so strict. Ve'ena ani Rishai Likach Mehen Ritzula Sandalai, you can't buy shoelaces, and can't hista. B'mabadan She'ir, Divram Rabbi Yaakov, Shem Rabbi Meir. And this is Rabbi Meir, that it has to be in front of a quorum. Hashem Gamaliel Mekel, as we continue to Kuf Zayin Madal, even though, says Rashi, the Meshani will suffer the Makbid Inishmidi Doli Chasirba. It's not really a big loss, so we see that people aren't Makbid about changing things. So then what's going on with our Mishnah that Hashem Will's Oyser is concerned about changing things? He's not Makbid over there. So Rabbi, time to Rabbi Shimon Kidamar. Diamar Haiman Denichale Tispur Ari. A person who wants to ruin your field. Lizra Shata Chiti, 1 year plant wheat. Vashata, the next year, barley. Shata Shesi, Vashata Erev. Basically, what he's saying is, even though it's true that barley in general is less bad for your field than wheat, but you can't switch off. If you do wheat and then barley, wheat and barley, it ruins your field. This inconsistency messes up the nutrients because you're using different grains. Therefore, even though you're switching from wheat to barley, Shmuel says it's still bad for your field. It's only if you didn't plow and then repeat the plowing process again. If you did it again, then it's not a problem. So and we have grain, don't plant beans because the legumes are worse to the field. So Masni le Rabbi Hudel Rabin, Tavua Yisarena Kidneys. He said that when it comes to grain, you could plant beans. I thought you're not supposed to plant beans because it's not as good for the field. Depends where you are. If you're in Eretz Yisrael versus in Bavel or in Chutzlaretz. Says Rashi, Masnisim Eretz Yisrael koi, Shi Makom Harim. We know Eretz Yisrael there's mountains all over the place. Therefore, because the earth could get weakened, Anan hashtem bebavel kaimin. We're in Bavel. Shehi matzula tavua bitzimayim. That there's plenty of water flow. We're not concerned in Bavel that the ground is going to get weakened. Hilkach Meshana b'chol makam sheyirtze mikitnius l'tvu kitnius Rav Shimon Eiser k'da amram. So, as we said, in Bavel, because there's less of a concern of the ruining of the field because it's of a higher nutrient value, if you will, it's soil. So therefore, for that reason, we're not makbid. If you switch, it's not an issue. But in Eretz Yisrael, we are. Armul Rabbi Huda Rabban Barav Nachman. Rabban Achi, Rabban, my brother, he said like this, Hani Tachle Debe Kisna Ebehem Mishim Gezel. If you have this cress that is growing among flax, so there's no din of gezel in that situation. Says Rashi, Lafi Shehu Mashbiach as Habalim, because it's actually you'd be doing a favor by removing it. Shemafsidin Pishtin Yoser al Demeha. The loss of the flax is more than it's worth, because basically it ruins it, and therefore you can chop it off, and it's not a form of stealing. Let's say that this is found by the border city, so yesh mishum gezel, then it actually is considered to be a form of gezel that a person is not allowed to touch. Ve'im hokshu lazera, however, if it's fully grown cress, if you'll be kisnanami yesh mishum gezel, then even among flax it's gezel. My taima, my de afsid. That which is lost is lost. In other words, there was already a loss by it being there to begin with. So now that it's already grown bigger, that doesn't do anything more. It's already done its damage. Normally, Rabbi Yehuda Ravan, Barav Nachman, Ravin Achi Hani Dili Diloch. That which is mine is yours. Vidiloch Didi. What is yours is mine. Nohug b'nei Metzia Iwan Hanait Lakan. He says that when it comes to a boundary, that a tree which is growing here is for there, and what's growing there is to there. The question basically is that if you have, says Rashi, Yesh be'ilanoisai shaper shulcha. There's a time that my tree is produces your fruits. Avalinoisecha shaper shali. And sometimes your tree produces fruit for me. Why? Because your field and my field are right next to each other. They're adjacent. There's all these trees all around. There's some that when I plant, it's mine. Because kafu, due to its roots, the tree bent. But not to cool and everything goes into your field. However, v'yankin mishalcha, it's getting nutrients from you. V'yesh mishalcha shenaitan l'sashali v'yankim mi'artzi. So basically, he's saying is that when you have a tree in which part of its roots are in one place and then it's hanging over to the other, so therefore it all gets mixed up in that way. And back in the Gemara, Diedmar ilan ha'emed al meitzar. If you have a tree that's in the middle or bordering two fields, as we say, we're basically going to go where the roots are, but it's possible that you can have a tree here where its fruits are on someone else's property, but it's really the other person's fruits because the roots are in the other property. Shmuel says in all circumstances just divide it. So we see clearly, like Shmuel, that you're supposed to divide it up. So Tigma Shmuel Libed Rav. So Shmuel answers the Libed Rav. How would he answer this? Bimamale kol hameitzar kuloi. If let's say the roots are filled up in both boundaries, so then in that case the din will be different. Dihachi malamemra. If that's the case, then what's the chiddush? Well, tzricha the tali tune l'chad gisa. It's leaning more to one side, its fruits. V'kati melamemra. So madatema yermoli polig hachi kamashoma yermoli ma'achazis the pagos hachi polig hachi. So he divided this way. He says, no, why? Who makes you think you should divide this way? Divide it this way. Okay. Amar Rabbi Huda Rabban Barav Nachman Rabban Achi Lo Tizbin Ara Desmicha Lamasa. A person shouldn't purchase land next to a city, where there's a lot of people that are going to watch you do this. Yom Rav Avoy, Yom Rav, who know Yom Rav, Also, Adam Shamud al Stechavero B'Shah Shemenis become a Saha. A person shouldn't stand in his friend's field or nearby when things are growing, because you may end up creating by giving an ayin hara by saying, "Wow, look at all this crops. This guy's so rich," and don't give this person an ayin hara. So too over here, you shouldn't purchase land near a city. Says Rashi, Shuli Yafsidena b'ayin hara, that you don't sustain a financial loss because of ayin hara. Okay, let's look at question 7 really quick before we continue with this thought process. Question 7. Peros hagadayulim be'ilanais shel hametzar. If you have fruits that are growing by the border in a tree, what's the din? So l'rav azlin lefi netias hashroshin. We look at the roots. Hanoit lokan lokan. Hanoit lokan lokan. So noitin lokan lokan cholkin. And if both fields are there, the roots are there, then you're cholkin. Shmuel says you always divide. Okay. So Aini, you're telling me you should be so concerned about an ayin hara because therefore you shouldn't be next to a city. Baha ashkhinhu Rabbi Abel Talmidi the Rav. Or he said, "My Omer Rav Bahani Kroy." How does he interpret these psukim in Ki Sabo? Brachata boy brachata besada brachata brachata beseisecha. V'yarmele hachi Omer Rav. This is how he interpreted it. Brachata be'ir. Blessed are you, the bracha of you in a city. Shebeitcha samach beis haknesses. Your house should be next to a shul. It's a good thing they're near a shul. Brachata besada. What is the blessing of a field? Shihu nisachecha kroiv u'meir. That you're basically your parnas is nearby. You don't have to take the LIR. You don't have to take a 2-hour drive to get to work. So that's a great blessing. Which that in itself is going to be the question. The question is, you say that you're not supposed to have a field, which is your parnasa, next to your city near that proximity with a lot of people, because of an ayin hara. But it says over here, as part of the bracha, that you should. Bracha tabavoecha shlotimsa ishtecha safek nida b'shas biyasacha derech. So when you're in the midst of traveling, that you find your wife as a safek nida, it's okay. The problem is, Rashi says, Safek Nida v'koshkin vadai. Maybe not. The idea of a Safek Nida is that you may rationalize having tashmish with her, thinking that she's really mutter to you. Brachata b'seisecha, when you go out, shu sitzoim me'acha kemoischa. That your offspring should be like you. That you should be blessed in that way. V'yarmelu Rabbi Yochanan lo yimer hachi. He didn't say this. El rachata boyer shehi beisa kisei samacha shulchancha. It would be that a bathroom is near your table, which again is obviously a very good thing. You don't have to go very far out into the fields in order to be able to use the bathroom. Okay, so therefore that's indeed a blessing. But how about being close to your shul? Says Rashi, it's actually not a good thing to have a shul right next to your house. We'll see why. Because there's this notion that while you walk, the further you go to shul, the better, because you get schar psiyos. You should diversify your portfolio. So why? It says Rashi, so if you put all your eggs in one basket, so things may be great, but if things aren't good, you're in a lot of trouble. But if you have it in a few different places, then you'll be okay. That it should be that you're going out should be like you're coming in. When you came into this world, you were a beautiful, innocent child, and that's how you should end. But again, this is the question. What's the question? How do we say that you shouldn't have a field next to your house? It's a good thing. Cliff Zayin Beis, Kasha. So Rashi says there's a chayma. If you have a fence or some type of a wall, so it's good that you're going to be, on one hand, it's very close to your house, so you don't have to go very far for parnasa. Ayin hara. So build a wall so that people won't see. What's this illness that Hashem will remove? So we have multiple answers, I think 5 answers. Omer Rav zu ayin. This is as we talk about the ayin hara. Rav Tamedi Omer Tzalak Lebei Kivri Avad Mad Avad. So he said that, says Rashi, Yodea Haya Wilchaish Al Kvadois. Person knows how to be engaged in incantations in the graveyard. L'havin Al Kol Kever V'Kever Be'ezem Misa Mace. He was able to basically figure out how everyone died. Imes Bezmano, Imayin Hara. Did he die in its time or not in its time? He said like this: Tisha v'Tisha ba'ayin ra. 99% of the people died because of an ayin hara, and one in a normal manner. So the notion of an ayin hara is that people are watching you, and therefore, because of that, that affects you. So that's how they die. Alternatively, the notion of an ayin hara means that you're not worried about yourself. You're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking of you. So therefore, that in itself is misa. Because the purpose of life is not to focus and worry about what other people are thinking of you. Who cares about what other people are thinking of you? So you should be able to do what you know is right, regardless of what other people are doing or seeing. Shmuel Omer Zeharuach. A very interesting answer. It's referring to the winds. Shmuel Tamedi Yomer Shmuel Hakol Baruach. All illnesses are totally by the wind. Which some people explain, some people who are less connected to being like a medical doctor in the most traditional manner, say that one of the most important things of life is air. Like Hashem blew air into us. V'yipach ba'apav ruach chayim. So the notion of life is oxygen. And the absence of oxygen is death. So, and some people say that that's why having a very good cardiovascular routine in your exercise regimen is extremely important, because that builds up your CO max, your ability to be able to breathe, which is connected to longevity. And that's perhaps the idea of hakol b'ruach. Ruach could also mean breathing and air. So you being able to breathe and having a healthy ability, a healthy respiratory system is totally on this notion of the Heiser Shemim Kol Chayli. Shmuel ha'ika harugi malchus. I mean, some people are killed by the sword by the government. So Hanach Nami Ilav Zika wasn't a wind to the wound. Abdulhu Samah v'chai. You could have medication and live. Chanina Omer, third answer, Zutsina. This is referring to coldness. That everything is in the hand of Hashem except being cold or hot, and therefore the cold blow is something which could be detrimental. Shnemer sinim pachim b'derech ikesh. This temperature in the manner of the crooked. Sherminasho yirchach mehem. Rabbi Yosi Bar Chanina Omer Zusaya. This is referring to waste that comes from your body. When it comes to excretions from the nose and the ears, Ruben Kashum Yutin Yafa. A lot of it is not good, but a small amount is normal. Rabbi Lezer Omer, fifth answer, Zumara. This is referring to the illnesses that apply to the gallbladder. Tanemi Hachi Machala Zumara. That's referring to the gallbladder. So again, it is connected to the health and well-being of every person. That actually, based on the gematria, machala, which is 40, 70, 83, there's 83 illnesses that could potentially happen to the gallbladder. So if a person has a good breakfast, or some breakfast of salt and water and bread, so that will remove the issues of pertaining to the gallbladder. Tanabana. Yed Gimel Devar Neber B'Pas Shachris. This is a plug. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you don't believe it, here's the Gemara for it. 13 good things that come to a person who eats a healthy breakfast. Matzelis Menachama Umenatzina. It saves you from the cold or from the heat. In other words, it regulates your body temperature. Umin hazikin in the winds. Umin hamazikin in the demons. Umachchimas pasi, and it makes a fool intelligent. The zaycha bedin lumatar lamed. You can learn Torah and teach it. Devarim nishmoyim, people are going to listen to you. The Talmudim iskayim, and your learning will remain. Biyadai ve'in b'sarai mala hevel, and your flesh is not going to produce a lot of hevel, which means you're not going to sweat a lot. V'nizkak l'ishtai, if you have a good breakfast when you have tashrish with your wife, enu mistavel isha cheres, you're not going to have tashrish with another woman because you had tashrish with your wife, because you had enough strength to be able to have had a healthy breakfast. Says Rashi, Nizkak l'ishto, im bal hirhurim hu, if he has a lot of hirhurim, his heart is full in the morning, shachuk sas toivel ishto, he'll be toiveh his wife. Even if he sees other women, he's not going to care because he already had tashrish with his wife and he was full. And it can remove worms that potentially can be in his intestinal tract, in his stomach. It removes jealousy, brings in love. Amrule, Rabbi Bar Mori, Menaha Milsidera Inshi. How do we know that statement which that people said that Shitin Rehite Rohit? There's 60 steps. V'Matul, and it didn't reach Lagavra de Mitzafra Karach, to the person who had basically bread in the morning. So the person can go quickly, but the person who has a good breakfast can't pass him. You should get up and eat in the summer because of the heat. In the winter, you're not going to be hungry or thirsty. You're not going to be afflicted by the sun. Because you're not hungry or thirsty, so then you're not going to end up having to worry about being afflicted by the sun. You learned out from that statement. It says, you bless Hashem and bless your bread, and your water. So you can serve Hashem by davening. And it says, afterwards, a person should have a breakfast. Afterwards, Hashem will remove any problems from your midst. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Ada, Mishucha, lo tizalzel bim mishchata. A person should not take lightly the measurements of property. The whole porta, every small amount of land, chazil kurkuma rishka. It can be used for planting or for the use of saffron, which is expensive, very expensive. So therefore, when it comes to measuring, you should be very exact. Or maybe hudel rabba adam mishuch dalad amos de nigra. When it comes to 4 amos and which canal of a canal, zalzel behu, that you could be mazalzel. It doesn't have to be so exact. Why? So we'll see maybe why in a second. It continues the Gemara, anahara, to mark the marking of a river bank, lo tim shechinhu, don't measure it at all. Rabbi Yehuda Tamedi, Rabbi Yehuda arba almois de aginra, 4 almos of this marking of a river bank, livnei a nigra. It's for those people that are by that riverbank. The nahara kuli alma. However, when it comes to a river, it's beneficial for all people. Okay. If you look in Rashi, Ella, it says loitim shechenu klal ela ba'oimid hadas. Just do a basic assessment. Tani kadeshihi nikarim le'inayim shehin shlemus or chavli. So it appears that it is all complete and done properly. Okay. Livnei Anigur, Rashi says, Eno mazik el yechidim. It only affects some. Yesh miyadam limchol, therefore you could be moichol. Okay. Machos Rav Ami. So Rav Ami announced, Malo kisvei negade betray Avri Nahara. That let's see, shoulder strength was cut down. They cut down trees this distance so the barge can walk by. These men are able to walk by the riverbank. Okay, so this is what he says: Maloi kisvei, for the shoulder length. Nigadi betray Avdi Nahar. You could end up cutting down. So he says, kutsu, cut it down. Rav Nasan bar Oishia cuts shitsar amasa. He actually cut down a lot more. Aslam alei b'nei mashroinya, the dafnuhu, and they hit him. Hu savar kershus arabim. He thought it was like kershus arabim, which is why it's 16 amos. That's why he did that, because that's the size, the width of a Rosh Hashanah, Blohi. Hasamin and Kuli High. Over there, that's how much you need to be able to travel, to be called a Rosh Hashanah, also for the Argolis and the Mishkan. Hacha Mishum Amtuche Esh Lehen, who Kimoli Kisve Negade Tsagi. All it needs to be is a shoulder length, and that is sufficient. Rabba Barabhuna Havileahu Abd Aguda Nahara Amrule Nekutzmar. So you said, let's cut down these trees. Amrulhu Kutsu Eloi Vatatoi. Let them do it and cut down the top and the bottom. Vehadar Nekutz Ana, and then I will go back and do the same. So how can you do this? It says regarding the dinim of Shemitah. Basically, adorn yourself and then adorn others. So our answer is Hasam Abadabe Parzak Rufliya Havi. This was a person, was a governmental position. The Yomer I Kaitsu Kaitsna. And they basically said that if you cut it down, cut it down. The ilo kaits, if you don't, amai ekots diimam techelahu ashlayhu then mistage lahu. That the sailors will pull these ropes. Says Rashi, Parsim hayu v'yaduhu shli kaitsu. They know not to cut it down. Umatoyil katzitzu shli. So what are you doing, cutting down as you did? See this last Rashi. Im yochel lim toiche chablam latava masal masa. These sailors can go from one place to the next. Lamikfar lekfar leilach memat lomal yelch. Okay. However, lo, if not, lo mistigebuhu. Says Rashi, ein lehem mahalach be'aver zeh. They shouldn't go. V'holchem al karchem derech safasai. Hashem is going the other side. Shari al karchem kishaholchem keneged hayar shal akam yelcha b'safaso ashniya. Okay. Rabba bar Rab Nachman havi ka'ozel ba'arba. He was on this boat. Chaza hu abba de koya guda nahara. And he saw that this person was a guda nahara. So he said to him, Daman. So Amrulay the Rabba bar Rav Huna. Amar biyad hasarim, in the hands of the leaders, Vahas Ganim, and its nobility. Haisa b'mal hazeh Rishayna. He made this first mistake. Armahu kutsu, chop it down and chop it down. Also Rabba bar Huna ashche de kayetz. Amar man katze tikutz anfe. Anyone who had that cut off should have his leaves cut off. So Amri Kuhu Shnei the Rabba Barab Huna Kaimli Zal Rabba Barab Nachman. So this was actually a klala. He was saying that all of his years that he did not have the ability to have children during all those years because of that curse. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see maybe question 8 and maybe a couple other questions. Rabba bar Nachman Sia Likoitz Yar Shel Rabba bar Huna Shayel Sfas Nahar. So he was measuring this area. Madua Haisa Zu Hara Batois. Why was this a mistake? So it says Shahayar Samachlo Milmalo Mata Shel Akum, that the forest was near, above and below that of an Akum. Shibavade Lo Nichu Liktzoitz, certainly didn't leave it to chop down. Nimsa Shaloi Toyel Katsitzas Hayar Hamsoi, so the middle one didn't help. Barabba Rab Nachman Lo Yadazais. Okay, maybe another question. Tanan, Tvuo is Rena Kitnius, Yobraisa Tani, Tvuo is Rena Kitnius. So, what is the answer to the stira? So, basically, we said Halon, Haluhu, which basically means whether we're in Eretz Yisrael, so therefore, because it's very hard for things to grow, so there we're more particular. However, if we're dealing in a situation of Bavel, in which things are able to grow and the depletion of the nutrients isn't as significant, so therefore it's not considered to be a problem. Now let's see what I wrote for TB4, which is also on this. So, Beglal Sheyesh Ako Min Ha'aliyah Begam B'Tachtaina V'Asade Shelo Be'emtza. His field was in the middle. V'Lo Tzarech Likoitz Esayar, so I didn't have to cut down the field. Nemnei Shahagoyim Lo Koitzim Esasada Sholahem, because they're not cutting down their fields. Adkan.